Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over Identity Crisis with another Flash tie-in book. Now, guys, remember, we are basically sitting down and talking about the idea that Barry Allen had a dark secret that he never told Wally West. And let me explain. You see, we had learned early on in Identity Crisis that when it came to the character known as Dr. Light, he was able to reach the Watchtower. Now, when he did that, he had assaulted a character known as Sue Dibney. Now, remember, Sue Dibney is the wife of the Elongated Man. She's the main character for Identity Crisis. With that being said, though, when it came to that moment where he had assaulted her, you had different members of the League come together and they had decided to play with his mind to make him a different person so that he would not go out in the world to assault other women. Now, for Wally West, around this time in DC Comics, he was the Flash, but he could not believe that his mentor, his uncle, Barry Allen, would be down with the idea to play with people's minds. But you had the other members who were there with Barry tell Wally, like, no, Barry was down with the idea. Now, at the end of our last video, when it came to the Flash tie-in, you had Wally West receive a letter that was written by Barry Allen, and it only given to him at the right moment. And so for Oliver Queen and Iris West, this was the right moment for Wally to get that letter, to understand why Barry did what he did when it came to the other League members. Now, the point of this dark secret for Barry Allen is not really Barry kind of confessing that he was down with the idea of playing with the mind of Dr. Light. Instead, it's him telling us that he did something even worse when it came to a character known as the Top. Something way worse than what they did to Dr. Light. Now, the character known as the Top has been one of those classic DC villains. Now, for the Top, I have to explain how his powers actually work. You see, for the Top, he had the ability of telekinesis. Now, the idea of telekinesis was a tad bit different for the character known as the Top. And what I mean is that he was able to use his powers on himself to make himself spin faster and faster, to the point where technically he was kind of moving faster than Barry Allen. Now, the more confident he was in himself, the faster he would be. Now, for Barry Allen, he tells us that for the Top, the problem was over time, he became more and more violent. The different crimes that he was committing were getting worse and worse. Now, around the same time, Barry Allen believed that his wife, Iris West, was murdered. And so he was already in a dark place. But getting back over to the Top, like I said, when it came to him becoming more confident with his powers, he became more violent. But luckily for Barry Allen, he died because of a brain tumor, or we were left to believe that he had died. Come to find out that for the Top, because of his telekinesis, his mind was just so strong that it was actually able to survive even after death. And so the mind of the Top was able to transfer his mind into the body of Barry Allen's father. Now, Barry was able to save his father, but the question was then, where did the mind of the Top go to next? And so that is when we learned that basically the mind of the Top had transferred to someone else's mind, someone who was basically brain dead. And so once you have the Top being able to take over that person's body, he began once again continuing his violent crimes across the city. Now, Barry was able to actually stop him, but then this leads into us learning what Barry had did to the Top that was apparently way worse than what they did to Dr. Light. So we begin to learn that apparently for the Flash, Barry Allen, he had decided to, yes, change the mind of the Top, but in a completely different way. Instead of letting him be a villain who was less, evil, instead, let's turn the Top into an actual good guy. Now, for the members of the League around that time, like Green Arrow, Hawkman, Zatanna, they were kind of like, this is a bad idea, because what they did to Dr. Light was wrong, but at the same time, he won't go out there assaulting other women, but he's still the same kind of person, meaning that he's still a villain. But now you are talking about the idea of taking someone's mind and turning them good. You have no idea what the outcome could actually be. And so while you have Barry actually argue with the other members of the league, we kind of understand why he's doing this for, because of Iris. He's afraid of possibly the top going after her or someone else close to him. Either way, you then have Zatanna agree to play with the mind of the top. And when she does, she turns him into a good guy. Now you would think like, okay, with the top now being a good guy, that means Barry Allen had another person on his side to help him out there in the field against his other enemies. And yes, he did. But the problem was though, for the top, he began to go insane, but in a completely different way. Because now he remembered everything he did in the past before he was a good person. And so he began to hate himself so much it drove him crazy and he had disappeared. And so for Barry, at the end of this letter that Wally is reading right now in the present day, is Barry asking Wally to return the sanity of the top to him. And so Wally's all like, okay, I have a new job now to do for Barry Allen, who's been gone for a few years. Now, I want to shift our focus over to the character known as Heatwave, because Heatwave around this time in DC Comics was actually a good guy. But the problem is that you still have some heroes out there who don't truly know that. And so he's currently being interrogated by Firehawk, Blue Beetle, and also Booster Gold. And they're kind of like, hey, do you know anything about the death of Sue Disney? Because her death is the main problem right now in the main storyline of Identity Crisis. Now you have Heatwave tell her like, hey, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I'm a good guy now. Why would I change to a bad guy again and kill her off? Now, luckily for Heatwave, he was saved by the Pied Piper. Now, the Pied Piper was another character who had also turned good as well. And so it kind of shows that even though you used to be a bad guy and you're now a good guy, to some of the heroes out there, in their eyes, you're still a bad guy, even though you have been reformed. You're now trying to be a better person in the world. Now, something else we have to talk about is the whole idea of where is Linda Park. Remember, Linda was the wife of Wally West around this time in DC Comics, but she had disappeared because when it came to Wally, she knew that he was the Flash. A lot of people knew. Basically, his whole identity was public. But then you had a Flash being able to put that secret back in a jar again. But of course, it also affected the mind of Linda, his wife. And so she kind of hated the idea that, well, he had messed with her mind, made her forget that he was the Flash. But either way, she had disappeared. And so for a good while now, he has been trying his best to figure out where she's at. And so you have Oracle, Nightwing, and also Batman. They're all trying to help him out to hopefully locate her so that he's able to actually talk to her. But now we have to jump over to Wally West paying a visit over to Ashley Zolomon. Now remember, Ashley Zolomon is actually the wife of Hunter Zolomon, better known as Zoom. Now, when it comes to Wally, at this time, he was being accused for attempted murder because he did work on her vehicle, but apparently he did not put us on the part back like he should had. And so a car, well, it crashed and it almost killed her. Now, with that being said, you did have Wally kind of get out of the whole idea of being accused for attempted murder, and he's right now trying his best to ease things between the two characters. Now, he's also coming here as the Flash, or really, he goes in at first as Wally West, but he moves so fast that you see Wally and you also see the Flash at the same time. But when it comes to Wally, he knows that she knows where possibly he can find the top. Because now we have to jump into the actual ending of the book where you have the Flash run over to the home of Zatanna. Now, when he does arrive there, we do learn what he wants her for, to help him fix the mind of the top. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.